Boom. What's up, freaks, friends, lunatics, humans, upright bipedal homo sapiens? How art thou this fantastic afternoon? As always, you're making today yours. You got up when you needed to, you did what you need to do, and I hope that today is continuing, for you at least, to be what you want it to be. I know that it can be tough. I know that mornings starting out particularly are hard sometimes. Sometimes mornings where I'm at right now in the Midwest can seem very uninviting, very cold and wet, very nasty and difficult. But I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that today for me personally has been a fantastic day. I've been able to do a good number of the things that I've wanted to do, and thankfully I will hopefully be able to do some things I'd like to do later. For now, I'd like to discuss the subject, if you're willing, of death. Our relationship to death, the way that we interact with it. It's something that has come up into my life and has confronted me without my permission in the past, and I don't want it to come up again. There's a line that I've recently been studying, or there's a line from a book that I've recently been studying about death, and it says that the sage, or the wise person, that's what the Tao Te Ching refers to the wise person as, is a sage, but it says that the sage lives in close relationship to death so that when it comes and occurs, it's not without permission. That's what this book says, and it still sticks with me. And then I remember different texts from various different faiths across the span and panoply of my life that have said similar things. This is not forever. This life that we're living, it's temporary, so use it wisely. And then we look at the words of the Stoics, right? The words of the Stoics, who said things like Memento Mori, remember death. Live life now because death is coming soon. And soon in the sense that, like, we are alive right now, and so we know life now. But we understand that our relationship to it right now is far away. But the instant that we lose someone close to us is the minute or instant or moment where we're reminded and encouraged by others. But at that point when it's occurring, sometimes it's too late, it seems. Sometimes it feels like it's too late to think about death, that is, or to have a healthy relationship with it. I've watched some of my friends have loved ones that they've lost. I've personally lost loved ones, and obviously I've lost people in the war, and I've lost friends to suicide. And by lost, I mean they took their own lives, or they themselves died, just as of natural causes or some sort of illness. So I understand death, and I'm sure you too have similar experiences. You understand death. But what I'm trying to encourage you to do, and something that someone in my current circumstances has encouraged me also to do, is to stop, pause for a moment, think. The Christian often has a much closer relationship to death than the non-Christian. The Catholic often has a closer, because, listen, for them there's a deep mortality to their faith. I grew up as a Christian, and I still sort of identify with some of the views and beliefs therein, but it's a non-faith thing, death, that is. Like, you don't have to have a faith to understand death. But I can say this, it's likely, calm down before you freak out about this likely statement I'm going to make, but it's likely that if you have a faith, your relationship to death is probably a bit more efficient, a bit more adequate than the average. And why is that? Well, because, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the components of a lot of world religions are based upon the idea of death. And even if you weren't a Christian, even if you didn't have a theistic position, and let's say you're someone who loves broccoli, you're a freak for broccoli, or you just love a good porterhouse steak. Either one of those requires death. It's important that you know that. It's important that you have that as a part of your thought processes. It's easy to look at a pile of broccoli or leaves and say, well, there's no life there. That's easy to munch up and consume. It won't fight back from me. It won't kick and scream. Its life force won't be chugging away while I'm trying to eat it. You don't think about death when you're consuming a piece of broccoli or a piece of lettuce or an apple or a banana. But the fact is, you are taking part in the destruction of life by consuming that apple. Okay? And furthermore, if it's a agriculturally farmed apple, buckle up, Bill, because you are responsible for a lot more deaths than just that apple. You've killed hundreds of thousands of snakes and crickets and sparrows and birds. You don't believe me, do you? You don't believe me. You don't believe me that agricultural farming kills hundreds and thousands and millions and billions and trillions of small creatures every year, just as a result of driving a combine through a field. And I'm not making a case why eating those things is wrong. I'm just simply trying to remind you that it doesn't matter if you're a vegan and nobody's died in your life. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You still have a relationship with death. Furthermore, here's something that's going to blow your mind. Google this, Jamie. I bet you nothing that everything inside of you has changed since you were nothing. I bet you everything that everything inside of you has changed since you were a nothing. Meaning, you're new. The you you're looking at now is a result of cellular death. Things have to die off and shake off and go away. In fact, somewhere in this world, there's a big giant pile of all of the nasty skin cells that Shane has let off. Or Tim, or Mike, or Steve, or whoever else is listening. Like, we all shed. We all lose. That's death. That's death. That is a death. That is dying. That is a process. So understanding that and knowing it is one thing. But having an appropriate relationship with it is what I'm referring to. So when it happens, it doesn't take the wind out of your sails. So part of the difficulty with dealing with what eternity is what after is. For some people, they claim to be confidently sure that after means heaven or after means hell. They're sure of that. And other people, they're sure that after means nothing. And we die and we're done. And that's the end of it. And we know nothingness. Some people believe that we go back into the earth and reincarnate as something else. We become, our essence or our spirit goes into something else and we become a tree or a frog or a fart on a leopard or something. I don't know. I don't think I'd want to come back as a Boris. I don't know. I'd be interested in goldfish. You guys ever seen Sword in the Stone? That little sage turns into a goldfish, doesn't he? Seems to do quite well. Then he meets that giant gar, or whatever that thing is, in the moat. Yeah. I remember that because the wizard was upset that such a large gar was in the moat. I digress. Regardless, our relationship with death, and I don't digress. I'm going to go back to this story for just a second because think about that for a minute. That little individual was terrified of his life for his life. Why? Because he didn't have an understanding of death. But isn't that also what gives them the reckless disregard for care, for personal welfare, and can allow brave men to disregard, or humans, brave individuals to set aside their own personal will? My friend and I were discussing this yesterday quite at great lengths. If we saw someone get struck in the street who looked to be a vagrant or a less than savory individual to some regard, we wouldn't even think about it, him and I. We would go and help that individual. To our own neglect, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, it necessarily puts us at risk to go up and interact with a vagrant. In some capacity, we are taking a risk. Does that mean vagrants are bad and they all are terrible? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. If that's what you heard, you weren't listening. What I'm saying is that vagrants carry with them a measure of danger. Just given that their lifestyle and the way in which they have to live because of who they are and what they do, they have to bend and break rules that some people don't, and they might be willing to make decisions socially that you wouldn't be prepared for. Assault, attack, drugs, these kinds of things. Now, is it right to go up and help that individual who just got struck by a vehicle, no matter what and who they are? Absolutely. But let's say I go to help that individual that got struck by a vehicle and another vehicle strikes me and I'm dead now. Let's say that vagrant decides he's loco and crazy, and the reason he's homeless is because he's mentally ill, and he pulls out a knife and stabs me in the throat and kills me. Or even worse than that, stabs me and doesn't kill me, but paralyzes me for the rest of my life. And now my family and my kids don't have me around because I was so selfish. What on earth would compel us to behave that way? Why? Why? Because we have an appropriate relationship with death. We understand that while death is difficult and challenging and necessarily a removal of something from something else, you need to understand, I need to understand, and we need to wrap our minds around this fact. The window is only valuable because of what was cut from it. The window is only valuable because of what was cut from it. So when we take away the part of the wall that looked so pretty and beautiful, when we remove the chunk of the wall, when we cut away the things that we view as unnecessary, it hurts. It's a challenge. It's difficult. It takes work to pry out and cut out the things. But the window is beautiful because the wall was cut away. The door is beautiful because the wall was cut away. The prime rib steak is amazing because the fat was cut off, because it was trimmed away. Things that are beautiful because they lack. Things that are beautiful because they do not have. So it's easy to look at life and say, I have or I do not have. But be prepared to do the contradictory thing as well, the other side of the thing. Look at life and say, I don't have any money. And then look around and say, well, at least I don't have any bills. Why? Because I can't pay them, so they're not bills. I mean, they're bills, they're there. I'm joking. I'm being slightly facetious. But let's talk about it. If you don't have any money, nobody can steal it. If you don't have a lot of cars, you don't have to worry about car theft. And if you don't have any legs, you don't have to worry about calluses and blisters on your toes, do you? Whew, that's rough, isn't it? I got some real good friends who are missing parts of their body as a result of the time they spent in the military. And I would definitely tell them that thing I just said. I love those people. Some of them are amazing, fantastic people because they went through the hardship they went through. So it's easy, again, to say the glass is half full. But it's also easy to say the glass is half empty. So why would I come to that conclusion? I think that the individuals who I know who have taken the risk that's required to lose parts of their limbs, they necessarily fully understood what death was. They knew it better than you know it now. I'm sure of it. They knew it better than I think I'll ever know it. They know death. They know it intimately. It is their bedmate. They sleep with it. They know it. They cuddle with it. It is close to them. They know the smell of its hair. They know it. And here's the facts, Jack. I got a friend who works in an apple orchard. And you know what he says? He says, if you don't cut away a tree, it won't grow fruit. It'll stop its growth. It'll stunt its growth. And there's some special kinds of trees that require or necessitate fire. Raging forest fires are required for some plants and things to grow. Let's see how many more David Goggins analogies I can squeeze into this podcast before you figure it out. Before you realize the fact that we are culpable, we are responsible, we are the ones who actually have the ability to look at what we're doing and make the decisions and decide and choose. And if you're saying, no, I don't know how to do that, well, that's okay. That's the first step. I don't know how to do that. I want to know how to do that thing there. Seems like a really important thing to do, and I'd love to know how to do it. It seems like you're doing it all the time, or you know how to do it, or you talk about it, and I'd sure love to figure out how to do that. Can I figure out how to do that too? Yes. There are a large number of religious views related to this principle that I'm discussing right now, okay? And by religious, I mean there are a large number of organizations and groups of theistic, faith-believing people who also practice this principle from a different perspective, but it is an identical principle nonetheless. Die daily. You ever heard that term? The term die daily? What it means, in some sense, is that each day and every day you should take a moment, you should stop, and you should ensure that your ego, shadow self, your will, your flesh, whatever you want to refer to it, whatever vernacular or label makes you feel the most comfortable, apply it to it and die it. Kill it. Don't let it live. Put it under submission. Be martial with it. Treat it like it needs to be treated. Because if you don't, it will very quite likely act like a fool. It'll act out like a toddler that's untrained, like a dog with no collar, like a veteran with no crayons. We're going to act out. We're going to be a bit aggressive and peculiar. Dennis adds, he said that death is only a change in a paradigm. The energy that is you is not destroyed with physical death, regardless of what we hope or believe. And Dennis, I don't necessarily disagree with you what you said there, but I want to be clear, that's an opinion. That's a position. And a discussion that I had at the gym the other day with some of the guys after I'd not done training is that you can't know that. You can't know what happens after death. You can't. You can't. I can't. You can't. You can't. It's an opinion. It's a position. It's a belief. It's based upon a faith. Faiths aren't bad. Beliefs aren't bad. But you don't have tangible evidence. You don't. And I don't either. So we have to believe. We have to believe. And if that belief turns into knowing, well, then we know. And that's okay. And that's cool. But we have to be cautious to say we know. Don't we? We have to be quite cautious to say we know what occurs. We're sure of it. We know for sure. Now we have a position, we have a belief, we have a faith, we have a status, we have a position, and those things are fine. And if you want to share those positions or those views, that's fine, share them. And if you want to defend them and provide extensive hermeneutical viewpoints for those things, that's fine, do that. And do it well and don't be a jerk while you're doing it. But listen, if you don't have an appropriate relationship with death, all of those things that you're talking about and discussing, all those faiths, all those practices, they're for nothing. They're for naught. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that will be the thing that could very easily sideswipe you. That could be the thing. Loss. If you're not familiar and accompanied by loss, then it will come at you like a whirlwind. It will want to scissor kick you in the forehead. It'll want to knock you on your butt. It'll want to take you out. Why? Because that's just sort of what it does. It's sort of its thing. And it's not doing its thing as a means of like negligent evil. It's simply doing what it's doing and saying what it's saying because that's just what it does. That's just the flow of things. That's just how it works. Death does what it does. Loss is just loss. But when you're close to loss, the loss is experienced willingly. You see that? When you're close to loss, when you have a good relationship with it, it's experienced willingly. So it's a challenge, and I couldn't imagine losing someone else that I love so close to me. I can't imagine what that would be like, except for I could. I can, and I have chosen to, and I've begun doing that with intention and purpose. Because whether I want to admit it or not, those persons in my life will go away in some capacity or another. I will lose track of some people in my life. I will experience loss. You, if you have not already in your life, you will experience loss. And when you do, if you're not prepared for it, it could sideswipe you. It could take you over. It could want to blow you over. It could want to take you out all the way. And the debates will go on forever and ever about what is and isn't. But the one thing I can know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is that you will know death. You will know it. And if you choose to know it before it comes at its will, it can be helpful. So, I appreciate you listening this far. I'm going to leave a little comment here with the timothylocklear.com. The only reason for that is not because I'm selling anything, despite it being a .com. It's because it's an archive of older podcasts. It's a link to some content and resources that might help you. It's not just for veterans. It's just for upright bipedals. I guess if your dog finds value in it, or some other four-legged creature, I suppose that's all right as well. I'm going to share this to a variety of different formats, including YouTube, Instagram, and those variety of different places, so you can listen to this again. Why would you want to listen to this again? Because you want to have a relationship appropriate with this thing we know as death, as loss. I appreciate you folks. And last but not least, here it is. If you're thinking about hurting yourself or someone else today, don't do that. Take a quick second. Take the tongue off of the roof of your mouth. Breathe. Calm down. Take a big breath in and a big breath out. Unclench your fists. and realize that these circumstances are just right now. They're not forever. They're literally just occurring in this moment. And in this moment. And in this moment. And these moments do not stop for us. They do not change for us. And they will not stop moving for us or on our behalf. So that means that it's our job to get after making these moments quite valuable. To get after making these moments things that can impact us later and maybe even possibly positively impact the ones around us that we love. So that before the individuals around you know death, they can also know love. See, we have the ability to know love. We have the ability to experience and have a deep and intimate relationship also with love. Love is more than just an emotion or a chemical feeling. It is real, and it can be experienced in a similar way to death. So perhaps that's something you should cultivate in your life, is love. The ability to tell yourself, pause, let's look around for a minute. Let's take stock. And if you've taken stock and looked around for a moment and realized that it is actually as bad as you think, okay. Well, number one, you're not doing this alone, whatever this is. And number two, this isn't forever. It's just right now. So please reach out if you've got some help that I could offer or take. And then if you have help that you need that I could offer, I'll give it to you. If I have it, and if I'm capable. But if not, I know a whole bunch of people who might be able to offer you the help that I couldn't. The fact is, there's help to be offered and assistance to be given in most circumstances. I do what I do because someone has done to me first. Someone gave to me a scoop of the wellspring of water, and I am now trying to simply share it, not to assume or say that what I'm giving out is anywhere near living water. This just dribbles off of my chin, to be honest. But the relationship that I have with life and death and love is a result of my experiences, my choices, and the individuals around me who have encouraged me to be intentional about my life. Be intentional.